Picture a man who once painted the vibrant joys of Spanish royalty, now cloistered in a lonely house by the Manzanares River. His world silenced by deafness, his heart scarred by war, loss, and betrayal. Francisco Goya, a genius born in a humble village, rose to dazzle kings with his luminous canvases, only to be shattered by illness, grief, and a nation tearing itself apart. In his final years, haunted by fevered visions and a society slipping into darkness, he turned the walls of his secluded home into a gallery of nightmares, which were later called the Black Paintings. Imagine standing in those shadowed rooms, where Saturn devours his child with wild, desperate eyes, witches bow to a demonic goat under a starless sky, and a lone dog drowns in an endless void, each stroke a scream from Goya's soul. These are no mere paintings, they are descent into the abyss of human fear, madness, and mortality, crafted by a man who saw too much and felt it all. Join me on a gripping journey through Goya's tormented life, from his sunlit beginnings to the creation of his haunting masterpieces, as we uncover the raw, unspoken truth they reveal about him and about us all. Starting out in a small village in Aragon, born on the 30th March 1746, to a family scraping by, his father a gilder, his mother from farming stock, he was a boy full of promise. Heading to Zaragoza at 14 to study under Jose Luzan, learning to sketch and paint with an eye for the lively scenes around him. By his 20s, he'd made it to Madrid, marrying Josefa Bayeu in 1773, the sister of his mentor, Francisco Bayeu. The home was filled with children, yet heartache followed. Out of the 7 little ones born, only Javier survived past infancy. Imagine the quiet grief that must have settled in their household, those empty cradles echoing through the days. Goya poured himself into his work, rising as a court painter by 1786, crafting portraits for kings and nobles with a brush that seemed to whisper secrets about their inner lives. But then came the illness that changed everything. In late 1792, while traveling in Andalusia, a storm hit him hard. From headaches pounding like thunder, dizziness spinning the world, and ringing in his ears that grew into a silence he couldn't escape. By the spring of 1793, at 46, he was completely deaf, with his right arm weakened and visions blurring at the edges. Doctors were puzzled over it, while some whispered of syphilis from a life lived freely in taverns and with admirers. Others pointing to the lead in his painting seeping into his blood, causing hallucinations and that deep, lingering melancholy. Mercury treatments, harsh as they were, might have worsened the damage, leaving him isolated in a world without sound. He wrote of his torments, how it tormented his imagination, pushing him to create works like Yard with Lunatics, where figures huddle in a shadow asylum, their faces twisted in fear and abandonment, mirroring his own dread of slipping into madness. Deafness enveloped him like a heavy cloak, pulling him inward. He learned to read lips and sign with his hands, but loneliness gnawed at him. His art changed. Those 1799 Capricos etchings poured out sharp critiques of society's follies, depicting witches and monsters born from sleeping reason, serving as a warning through bold lines and deep shadows. Then the Peninsular War erupted in 1808, when Napoleon's troops invaded Spain. Goya remained in Madrid, his eyes wide to the chaos, streets filled with cries he couldn't hear, but saw in blood and shattered bodies. The May 2nd uprising and the execution on May 3rd inspired him to later paint the 3rd of May, 1808, showing faceless soldiers firing into the dark, with a lantern casting harsh light on a man's defiant face and outstretched arm like crucifixion. His Disasters of War series, hidden until after his death, depicted the raw horror, mutilated bodies hanging from trees, forming carved faces during the 1811 to the 1812 siege, when people scavenged anything to survive amid the ruins. It was fury poured onto paper, a powerful outburst against the brutality from every side. Personal losses piled like gathering clouds. Josefa, his companion, died in 1812, leaving him adrift. Rumors swirled of affairs, perhaps with the Duchess of Alba, her portrait in black mourning veils, hinting at intimacies shared in whispered moments. His son, Javier, felt ill too, stopping Goya's world as he nursed him back. But the fear lingered. By 1814, with Ferdinand VII restoring the old monarchy, crushing the liberal constitution Goya had hoped for, disillusionment set in deep. The Inquisition revived its grip, superstition over reason, and Goya, once celebrated, felt the weight of a society turning backward. He withdrew, buying a house outside Madrid in 1819, the Quinta del Sordo, which translates to House of the Deaf Man, a name that was given to it due to its previous owner, a place of solitude where he lived with his maid Leocadia and her daughter, a companionship that might have been tender though shadowed by speculation. There in his 70s, another grave illness struck in 1819, from fevers, swelling, and perhaps a relapse of old poisoning in his system, which brought him closer to death. During this time, he turned to the walls of his dining and sitting rooms, brushing oils directly onto the plasters in board. These were the black paintings, 14 murals born from the depths. They were never meant for public eyes, yet they speak to us across time. First, there is Saturn Devouring His Son, a monstrous vision that stops you cold. We see a tall, emaciated Saturn, the Roman god, his eyes bulging with terror, gnawing on the headless, bloodied body of his child. The flesh is torn, crimson streaks dripping down his gnarled hands. The background is a suffocating black void. Goya drew from the myth where Saturn eats his offspring to thwart a prophecy of being overthrown. Is thick, applied with frantic energy, as if Goya was wrestling his demons right on the wall. Next we come to Judith and Holofernes, steeped in the biblical story of Judith slaying the Assyrian general to save her people. Goya shows her with a sword mid-strike. Her face, though isn't triumphant, it's shadowed, almost hesitant, caught in a moment of moral weight. The scene is drenched in muted greens and greys. This could be Goya reflecting on the violence he saw during the Peninsular War, resistance that bled into savagery, or even the personal encounters with strong women like Leocadia or the Duchess of Alba. their power both alluring and unsettling. The intimacy of the scene with Judith so close to her victim feels like a confession of the toll that survival takes, a quiet question about the cost of wielding power. Then there's Leocadia, a figure who seems to step out of the gloom with quiet intensity. The woman-likely Leocadia weighs, Goya's companion in his later years, leans against a mantle or perhaps a tomb, draped in black veils that suggest mourning. Her eyes are piercing, her posture weary yet resolute, bathed in soft light. The setting feels like a private moment, as if Goya painted her to capture both his gratitude for her presence and his awareness of death's nearness, either his own or hers. The ambiguity of the surface she leans on, possibly a grave, weaves in themes of loss, perhaps harking back to his wife, Josefa's death, or his own brush with mortality. It's a tender portrait, intimate and sorrowful, a testament to companionship amid isolation, glowing like a faint ember in his darkened world. Moving to the two old ones eating soup, we see two skeletal figures hunched over a shared bowl, their faces gaunt, almost skull-like, as they spoon up what looks like a meager meal. The scene is dark, painted in cold greys and browns, the figures blending into the shadows as if they are fading away. This feels like a memory of the famine during Madrid's 1811 to 1812 siege, where starvation hollowed out lives, but it's also deeply personal. Goya in his 70s, confronting his own frailty after illness. The act of eating is stripped to its barest essence, no nourishment, only survival, a ritual that feels both futile and defiant. It's as if he's showing us the raw edge of existence, where dignity erodes, but the will to persist endures, a quiet reflection on the human struggle. Two old men draws us in with its eerie intimacy. Two aged figures are close, one whispering into the other's ear, who leans heavily on a cane, his face etched with exhaustion. The colors are muddy, the light dim, creating a sense of secrecy or conspiracy. This could be Goya's take on gossip, betrayal, or the inner voices that tormented him in his silent world. Perhaps a jab at the clergy or politicians plotting in the shadows of Ferdinand VII's regime. The whispering feels like a violation, a loss of trust, as if the mind itself conjures threats in solitude. It's a painting that makes you lean closer, wondering what secrets are being shared and what they cost. Now this one hits you like a quiet ache. A small dog's head, barely visible, peeks out from a vast sloping expanse of ochre and black, its eyes gazing upwards in desperate longing. The rest of its body is lost, swallowed by what feels like quicksand or an endless void. The simplicity is devastating. No background, no context, only this fragile creature against an overwhelming emptiness. It's Goya's isolation laid bare, his deafness trapping him in a world apart, or perhaps a broader cry for humanity facing an indifferent universe. The dog's upward glance could be a plea for rescue or meaning, but unanswered, making this one of the most universal image of abandonment. You can't look away without feeling its weight, a mirror to our own moments of quiet despair. Atropos, also known as the Fates, pulls us into a myth with a dark twist. Spectral women float in a stormy sky, one holding scissors, ready to snip the thread of life, another holding a doll-like figure, which is a soul in their grasp. Goya's fates aren't peaceful. They are witch-like, their forms distorted, faces grim with intent. The palette is turbulent, all stormy blues and greys, evoking the chaos of his fevered dreams or his fears after surviving illness in 1819. This is destiny as a cruel force, controlling lives with cold indifference, perhaps reflecting Goya's sense of powerlessness in a Spain sliding back into repression. The floating figures feel otherworldly yet oppressive, a reminder that fate doesn't negotiate, it only decides, leaving us to ponder our own threads in their hands. Fight with Cudgels is a brutal scene, raw and unflinching. Two men buried to the knees in mud swing clubs at each other, their faces twisted in rage and pain. The landscape is barren, the sky a sickly yellow, amplifying the sense of entrapment. This feels like Goya's cry against the endless conflict he witnessed. Liberals versus absolutists, brother against brother in Spain's civil strife. The men can't escape, their legs stuck, suggesting cycles of violence that blind and destroy. The rough, heavy brushstrokes convey the physicality of their struggle, making you feel the blows, while the futility of their fights speak to Goya's despair of a society tearing itself apart, unable to break free. Which is Sabbath pulls you into a feverish nightmare. A massive horned goat sits enthroned, preaching to a circle of hags, their faces twisted in awe and terror. The scene pulses with chaotic energy, painted in deep blacks and eerie greens, which is Goya's satire of superstition and the Inquisition's grips on Spain. The goat, a false idol, could stand for blind obedience to authority, either religious or political, while the witches embody the irrational fears that consumed society. It's immersive, almost suffocating, drawing you into the frenzy, making you question what false gods we still worship in our own time. Asmodia feels like a dream on the edge of collapse. Two figures soar through a turbulent sky, one pointing towards a distant mountain as rifles fire below and castles crumble. The colors are wide, ranging from reds, yellows, and dark blues, which are all clashing, evoking a world unraveling, inspired by the demon Asmodeus or Goya's own hallucinations. This could be an escape from reality, a flight toward hope or oblivion amid the war's destruction. The figure's weightlessness contrasts the violence below, suggesting a fragile transcendence, perhaps Goya's yearning to rise above his pain and Spain's turmoil, even as chaos pulls them back. The procession of the Holy Office is a grim parade, a line of clergy and penitents marching under a banner, their faces elongated, almost grotesque, in a mockery of piety. The palette is dark, all brown and deep reds, the figures bloated with hypocrisy. Goya's disdain for the revived Inquisition and its oppressive rituals drips from every stroke, showing religions twisted in control. The procession feels endless, a relentless march of fanaticism, crushing individual spirit, reflecting his frustration with Ferdinand VII's return to absolutism. It's a scene that makes you recoil, yet draws you in to question the system we accept without thought. Women laughing stings with its cruelty. Two women cackle widely at a man who might be caught in a private act or simply ashamed. The colors are harsh, the light unforgiving, highlighting their mocking expressions. This could be Goya exploring his own vulnerabilities, which are aging, weakened, or perhaps feeling emasculated in his isolation, or a broader jab at social ridicule and taboo. The laughter cuts a deep, universal wound, reminding us how quickly joy can turn vicious, leaving the mocked figure alone in his humiliation. Men Reading offers a quieter but no less touching scene. A group of men huddle over a newspaper or a document, their faces absorbed yet shadowed, lit by a faint, cool light. The setting feels claustrophobic, the figures isolated in their focus. This might satirize the intellectual debates of Goya's time, futile under a repressive regime, or reflect his own detachment, lost in a world of ideas that led nowhere. The act of reading, usually enlightening, here feels hollow, a sign to the limits of knowledge when power stifles truth, resonating with his silent, disconnected existence. Finally, A Pilgrimage to San Isidro captures a chaotic crowd of pilgrims heading to the saint's hermitage, their faces distorted in drunken revelry, singing and stumbling in a haze of excess. The colors are earthy, the figures blending into a mob, losing individuality in their fervor. What should be a sacred journey becomes a grotesque carnival, which is Goya's critique of popular religion, twisted by superstition and indulgence. It's a vibrant, unsettling scene, reflecting his disillusionment with Spanish tradition corrupted by ignorance. A final note on humanity's tendency to lose itself in blind celebration. It's clear that his black paintings stand as a profound testament to a life richly lived amid profound turmoil. They capture not merely the artist's private torment, but the universal struggles we all face when confronting our own fragility and the world's unrelenting chaos. Through these murky visions of giants devouring their kin, witches huddled in fervent delusion, and solitary figures swallowed by vast emptiness, Goya invites us into a shared intimacy with suffering, reminding us that even in the deepest shadow, there is raw beauty in acknowledging our humanity. His legacy endures like a quiet conversation carried across centuries, urging us to gaze unflinchingly at the darkness within and around us, finding in it not despair but a deeper connection to the resilient spirit that persists. In the end, Francisco Goya doesn't leave us in the gloom. He hands us a lantern crafted from his own pains to light our way through our own unspoken nights, fostering a gentle understanding that binds us all. Thank you for watching. Until the next one.